You are trying to memorize a dozen different frameworks. And then you found Victor Cheng's business situation framework. And now you feel happy. You have one framework, you can solve a dozen different cases with it. But there's still that uncertainty within you. Can one framework actually solve almost all types of business cases? Is the business situation framework always messy? Hey everyone, I'm Bruno, and in this video I'm gonna share with you a few tips on how to use the business situation framework. I'm gonna share with you when you can use it, when you cannot use it, and also I'm gonna show you how to adapt this framework to your specific situation. So for those of you who don't know it, the business situation framework is a framework used to structure consulting case interviews or business problems, and it does so by breaking down a business problem into a customer analysis, a competitor analysis, a company analysis, and a product analysis. Now, it is the best friend of every beginner in case interviews. And the reason is it lets you structure any case without you having to memorize a dozen different business situations. So it doesn't matter if your client's trying to enter a market or acquire a competitor or launch a new product or verticalize backwards. You can use the business situation framework to structure those types of cases. But can it really do it? Can the business situation framework actually help you structure any business case? And if so, who is the genius who invented it? Was it Victor Cheng himself? Well, another question that I get asked a lot. Do real McKinsey consultants actually use the business situation framework to structure their clients' problems? Short answer is no. But anyway, a little history will help you understand where does this framework came from, so you can know when you can use it and when you cannot use it. The business situation framework is actually not an original framework. It is a derivation from the 3Cs model, which is a model to describe or understand strategy that was created by an ex-McKinsey senior partner named Kenichi Omei in the early 80s. So this model had the customer's analysis, the competitor analysis, and the company analysis. My guess is that Victor Cheng got this model, saw that it worked for a lot of strategic problems, added the product category because you need the product analysis in a lot of the case interviews that you're gonna face, and then called it the business situation framework. So if you want to understand better the origins of this framework and where it came from and how to use it better, you can read this book, The Mind of the Strategist. It was written by Kenichi Omei himself. It's full of insights on how to use the 3Cs, how to use issue trees to better understand your client's strategic problems, either if you're a consultant or you're going through case interviews. Now, obviously, you don't need to read this book to do well in a case interview. I only read it after I left McKinsey, but it's a really good book. So if you want to pick it up, I'm going to put some information on the description below. So now that you understand better where this framework comes from, let's jump right into the tips on how to use it. So tip number 1 is to only use it in competitive business strategy cases. So the 3Cs are the basic elements of a competitive business strategy. Every market has customers who have some problem to be solved. It has your company trying to solve these customers' problems with their products or services. And it has the competitors of your company doing the same. They're trying to solve your customers' problems with products and services. Now, it only makes sense to add the product category in most cases because the products are the main interface between the companies, yours or your competitors, and the customer's problems. That's the main way they interact. Now, one implication of all this is that you can use the business situation framework whenever you have a business-related competitive strategy problem. Because the 3Cs framework, which is the one that originated this one, was created for business competitive strategy. So if you have a problem of this type, you can use that framework. What this also means is that you cannot use this framework when you have a different type of problem. So for example, if you have a public sector problem, that's not business, that's not competitive strategy, you can't use it. Or if you have a business problem that's not strategic. So for example, you have an operations problem, or you have a finance problem, how to finance my new factory or my new business line or whatever. Those are not competitive strategy problems. So you can't use them, you can't use the business situation framework to solve them. Or even if you have a strategy problem that is not competitive strategy problem. So for example, you have a supply chain strategy problem, or you have a media strategy problem. Those types of problems are not competitive strategy. They're strategic, but they're related to something else that's not competition. So you can't use the 3Cs framework for those types of problems. So tip number 1 is to only use the business situation framework when you have a business-related competitive strategy problem. Tip number 2 is to adapt it a lot. So even if you have a business-related competitive strategy case, does that mean that you should use the business situation framework? Do real McKinsey consultants use the business situation framework or the 3Cs when they have this type of problem? The answer is no. During my time at McKinsey, I have never seen anyone using the 3Cs, the business situation framework, to solve any client's problems. And the reason is it's just too basic. Maybe they did use it in the 80s, but right now it's just common sense. You're not adding any value if you bring these basic ideas to the table. So what that means is that if you choose to use the business situation framework, you have to adapt it a lot. So how do you adapt it? Well, you can add new categories that might be relevant, and you can also go deep into each category and do very specific analysis that are very useful for that specific case. So for example, if you have an automotive case, you can add the suppliers category. That's really important for a strategy in the automotive business. Or if you have an airlines case, you might want to add the regulators category because they're really important for the airline business. Or if you're launching a new consumer packaged goods, so a new line of shampoo or hair care, you might want to add the distribution channel category because they're really important for that type of business. Also, don't forget to go very deep into each bucket and do analysis that are specific for that industry, for that type of problem within each bucket. This will make up a little bit for using a generic common sense framework, and the deeper you go, the more relevant categories you add, the more customized your framework is going to be for your specific case. Tip number 3 is to make your framework messy enough. So a lot of people come to me and ask if the business situation framework is messy or not, which is actually the title of this video. And what I answer to them is, I can't tell. You need to tell me what problem are you trying to use this framework to solve? Because if it's messy or not, if it's exhaustive or not, it depends on the type of problem you're trying to solve. So you're probably going to need to adapt it a bit so it's related to the last tip. So you have to make it messy enough. You look at your problem that you're trying to solve and you add all the really relevant categories that you think are relevant at least to solve the problem. And that's going to make it more exhaustive to that problem. Do you have to be perfect? Probably not. If there's a category that might be relevant but you're not really sure, either add it or not, or mention the issue in another part of your framework, but you have to be messy enough. Same within each bucket. You have to think of the issues and the main questions and hypotheses that you have that are really important in that industry, in that type of the problem that you're trying to solve. And you don't have to be perfect again, but you have to be messy enough. Now, all this adapting takes work, so you might not be liking what you're hearing. Maybe you're looking for a magic pill or a silver bullet that works. And I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be the guy who brings you that. If you're looking for that, there's a bunch of other channels or blogs that teach you frameworks, but I won't do that because that doesn't work. Your interviewer wants to see how you think about the problem, what unique ideas you bring to the problem, because that's what the work's about. You can't copy paste your way into consulting, because they're not looking for people who can copy paste. They're looking for people who can show original thinking. And finally, tip number 4 is to think of it as training wheels. So people love this framework, especially when they're starting out, because it's super simple. It makes their life simple. And when you're starting out, everything's overwhelming. So you just want to keep some stuff stable, under control, before you can learn the rest. And that's fine. That's okay. It's okay when you're learning something new that you keep some stuff stable, something stable and under control, so you can learn the rest. And then you go back and make this variable again. It's like when you're trying to learn to ride a bike. You have your training wheels, so you don't have to worry about balancing. You don't have to worry about that initial push when the bike's still standing still and it's more likely to fall. You learn everything else, and then you go back, take the training wheels off when you can, handle the direction and what to do with your head and everything. You go back, you take your training wheels off, and then you worry about the balancing and the initial push. Think of the business situation framework the same way. Think of them as training wheels. So if you're trying to go to an interview and use the business situation framework to impress your interviewer, that's probably not a good idea. Most interviewers nowadays, they want to test your ability to come up with your own structures, not to memorize structures. So they'll give you a case that's not on competitive strategy, at least one in your whole recruiting process, or even if it's a case on competitive strategy, they're gonna give you a case that's so different, so nuanced, that you're probably not gonna get away by using a pre-made structure without a lot of adaptations. So if you want to use the business situation framework, so you don't have to learn frameworks in your first 10 or 15 cases, so you don't have to learn how to structure your own cases, that's fine. You hold this constant, and then you learn how to solve cases in general, and eventually one day you return to your training wheels and you get rid of them. You learn how to structure your own cases. Now, if you're going to your interviews with the business situation framework or any pre-made frameworks for that matter, that's like trying to go to a biking competition with training wheels. I mean, no one's gonna laugh at you in the consulting firms as they would in the biking competition, but you're gonna be like, who the hell is this guy? And that's not what you want. What you want is to show them that you can think originally. So you need to learn how to solve cases and you need to learn how to structure cases. But you can use this framework to help you early on, so you don't have to learn how to do both things at once. So what should you do now? Well, if you've been using the business situation framework and you want to quickly find some techniques to make it better and more specific to the case and how to adapt it, I'm gonna put a video up here now. It's on 3 simple techniques you can use it in your business situation framework to make just that. Make them more adapted, more specific to your problem. Now, if you want to go a step further and learn how to create MISI structures from scratch, I've created a whole playlist on the 5 ways to be MISI. So the business situation framework is a type of conceptual framework. That's just one way to be MISI. There are 4 others. There's a whole playlist on that. If you're going to case interviews and you know how important being MISI is, I recommend that you watch, if not the whole playlist, at least the first video, because it shows an overview of the 5 ways to be MISI. It's so helpful because when you have to structure a problem, you know what your options are. I highly recommend you watch the whole playlist, but watch at least the first video. And if you want to learn how to create your own frameworks from scratch, if you want to do some exercises, some drills on that, and see how you perform, there's a free course that we make available to you at craftingcases.com/free course. It teaches you many other things besides that, but that's one of the core things in the course. I highly recommend you take it. There's no catch. We just make stuff available to you. It's some of our best stuff. And it's not something that you're going to find elsewhere, because my partner Julia and I have developed these techniques over the years by coaching candidates. We didn't borrow it from someone else or steal it from another person. We just created it, and it's really helpful. So you might want to check it out at craftingcases.com/free course. Even if you do that, I still recommend you go watch the 5 ways to be Missy, because a lot of the stuff in those videos is not in the course. So hope you've liked this video. If you did, hit like down there. Helps us improve our rankings on YouTube. Click subscribe so you get more videos like this. We put out videos every week. And ask in the comments some question that's in your head. It's going to inspire us to do other videos, and I'm going to answer them myself as you post them. I love helping, so just do that. Hope you've liked this video, and I'll see you in the next one.